In the previous video, I proved that tangent of u over 2 is equal to sine of u over 1 plus cosine of u. The other two half-angle formulas are listed here. Sine of u over 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 minus cosine of u over 2. And cosine of u over 2 is equal to plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine of u over 2. You must choose the plus or minus sign on these formulas based on which quadrant the angle u over 2 lies. Let's give an example of what this might look like. Given that cosine of t is equal to 2 over 3, or 2/3, with t in the fourth quadrant, find tangent of t over 2. Here's my quadrant map. I'm going to draw cosine of t in the fourth quadrant. The adjacent side is 2, and the hypotenuse is 3. The angle is t. The side opposite t will be the square root of 9 minus 4, which is equal to the square root of 5. Now, I hope you've noticed one piece of information that I missed, and that is that this side that's opposite is negative because it is below the x-axis, and it represents a height in the negative direction. Now let's look at tangent of t over 2. Tangent of t over 2 is equal to, remember the formula, 1 minus cosine of t over sine of t. I will replace cosine of t with the value I find for cosine of t, which is adjacent over hypotenuse. So I will have 1 minus 2/3 in the numerator. And in the denominator, sine of t is going to be negative root 5 over 3, opposite over hypotenuse. If I get a common denominator in the numerator, I will have 3 minus 2 all over 3. And in the denominator, I'll have negative square root of 5 over 3. That means that tangent of t over 2 is equal to reducing the common denominator, 3. I will have 1 over negative square root of 5. If I rationalize this, it's not going to change the value of it, but it will make it look prettier. And I will have 1 negative root 5 over 5. This is the value for tangent of t over 2. Let's take a look at the cosine of 15 degrees. We want to find the exact value of cosine of 15 degrees. Well, remember that if I use the half-angle formula, I can write cosine of 15 degrees as 30 degrees over 2, and then use the formula for cosine of a half angle. Remember that the half angle for cosine is plus or minus the square root of 1 plus cosine of u all over 2. This allows me to rewrite cosine of 30 degrees over 2 using the formula. Cosine of 30 degrees over 2 will equal plus or minus the square root of cosine of 1 plus cosine of 30 degrees, all divided by 2. From here, I'm going to replace cosine of 30 degrees because I know what it actually is, and at the very end, I'll decide on the signs. 1 plus root 3 over 2, where root 3 over 2 is equivalent to cosine of 30 degrees, all divided by 2. Now I can get a common denominator, and I'll have 2 over 2 plus root 3 over 2, all divided by 2. And if it helps you, remember this is 2 over 1 in the denominator, and so you can't reduce that with the 2's in the numerator. That will give me plus or minus the square root of, building up the denominator, 2 over 2, so I have a common denominator, will give me 2 plus root 3, all divided by 2, divided by 4 over 2 in the denominator. And now I'll divide out that common denominator, and it will give me plus or minus the square root of 2 plus root 3, all divided by 4. 4 is a perfect square, and so I can rewrite it with 2 in the denominator and no radical. So I have 2 plus root 3 under the radical, all divided by 2. This is the exact value for cosine of 15 degrees. However, we do need to discuss whether this will be a positive or negative value. If we think of 15 degrees, that is in the first quadrant, and since it is cosine, we know that cosine is positive in quadrant 1. So we will take the positive sign in front and throw out the negative. This gives me the square root of 2 plus radical 3, or root 3, all over 2.